What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm Andre Fernandez, your host, joined as always by Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. Lots as usual to talk about. It's playoff time, MLS Cup playoff time. Finally, seems like this season, the MLS season, seems like it takes forever to get to it. Regular season is so long, but we're finally here, late October, about to start this series first round for Inter Miami, right where they were dismissed last year by Atlanta United. Let's see if this season they can make it a little more, at least a little more prolonged stay. We know their chances. We're going to talk about their chances of potentially winning the MLS Cup, but we're going to start with a lot of Lionel Messi, both the good stuff and the not so good stuff. The good stuff, obviously, is that the Golden Boot winner, Lionel Messi, we knew he had it pretty much a shoe-in to have it done even before his hat trick this week that helped Miami win a big game over Nashville to solidify that third seed in the Eastern Conference and set up the playoff series we were anticipating with Nashville in the first round. But also a little bit, little hurt, Lionel Messi now. He missed training on Tuesday, a little banged up before this series even begins. Michelle will dive into all of that, and we'll talk a little bit about Messi's candidacy for the MVP. Looks like probably should be a lock for that too, many think, but let's see what happens on that front. We'll have reaction from Rodrigo De Paul, who spoke to the media on Tuesday after training, and Javier Mascherano. We'll talk a little bit about both the playoffs and Messi's MVP candidacy. We have a reaction from Talasco Segovia about the big win in Nashville as well. And then we'll talk a little bit about Ian Fray's future and what lies in store for him. But let's start with number 10, Michelle, as we always do. What's wrong with him?
Yeah, I mean, the week started, it seemed like it was going to be just rah-rah Lionel Messi. He punctuates the regular season with a hat trick of all things, which by the way, he did last year too. When I was doing my research for my playoff previews, I realized that last year, regular season finale, he had a hat trick in a win over New England. And this year so this is a tradition for him. He just finishes the season
He
with a
makes
hat
sure.
trick, just to make sure. And this year he really did. He wanted the Golden Boot. He did. He loves competing for things. He was competing with Buanga for the Golden Boot. Buanga was in Gabon last week. Anyway, there was no question. He got a hat trick. He ends up with 29 goals and 19 assists in 28 games. 29 goals in 28 games and 19 assists, which also is first in the league. So he's the leading scorer in the league. He's the leading assist man in the league, which obviously there's no question he is the MVP of the league. He's the most valuable player for this team. He's the most valuable player in the league. I don't think there's really any question. He already won it last year. And this year, his case is even stronger. He will become the first player in MLS history, in the 30-year MLS history, he'll be the first player to win back-to-back MVP. So everything looked like it's on the up and up. And we go out to training on Tuesday, the media, and we do attendance. When the players are coming out, we're saying, okay, this one's here, this one's here, this one's here. And where's Leo?
Where's 10?
Where's Leo? David Beckham was there. David Beckham was there at training, which we knew means it's time for the playoffs. It's a big game because the boss is out there,
Mm-hmm.
and but Leo was not. The goat was not there. So that led to a lot of speculation and whispers and what's going on, what's wrong with him, where is he? Is he just at some kind of commercial shoot? Is he sick? Is he injured? Anyway, it took 3 hours for the media relations staff to come up with an answer for us, which I thought was a little unusual. I think they could have just gone over to Javier Mascherano and asked him, where's Leo? And he would have said, but anyway, 3 hours later, read into it whatever you want to, but 3 hours later, we got the answer, which was that he had a minor back discomfort. He had trained on Monday. He had minor back discomfort and had some kind of treatment, but was expected to return to training on Wednesday and is expected to play on Friday. It is not expected to affect his availability for Friday. So that was the official word from the club, that he had a minor back discomfort. that he was expected to be at training on Wednesday, which we don't get to see. Our next time to get to see training is Thursday. And that is when we will obviously see if he's there, and we'll get to ask Javier Mascherano more details about what happened. But bottom line is, Lionel Messi, the Golden Boot winner, the eventual probably MLS MVP winner, was not at training on Tuesday on the week of the playoffs. So that made for big headlines, a lot of buzz.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's nothing bad, a rest day is not a big deal. In fact, probably a good thing, especially coming off what he did last week on the road at Nashville. Take
No, and he had
a
also
little
played for
breather.
Remember,
And
he played
Argentina,
for Argentina
the
too.
Tuesday game, right?
He had a big week.
Yeah.
He played on Tuesday. Then he went away to Nashville. He has a hat trick. He played the full 90 and played strong. So, maybe the off day, for whatever reason, the off day was a good thing for him. The big thing will be, is he at practice on Thursday, and is he going to play on Friday?
Right.
According to the club, no reason for concern. Everything is okay. Minor back discomfort is not expected to impede his ability to play.
Hey, that's the important thing for them. And I mean, any of the veterans right now, a rest day does not hurt, especially, after the grind of that season. We talked about it the last week or two of the regular season. It was good to get back on that once a week schedule for them, because
absolutely,
it was just brutal for a while there of them planning to play twice a week, travel going here, going there, those long trips.
Yeah, they had 7 games in 21 days.
Right.
They did have 7 games in 21 days, which is every 3 days. So they had a brutal schedule. Now they do have a week in between. And by the way, the win over Nashville the other day, let's talk about that. That was for so many reasons so important, and proved once again, Messi, not only that he got the hat trick, but Miami was being dominated by Nashville in the first half. I mean, Miami looked bad. Let's just face it. Miami looked bad, the usual, getting beat in transition. Nashville had many chances that they did not take advantage of. And Rocco Rios Novo, by the way, starting in his 3rd game in a row, he did have some big saves in the first half. He did have a few big plays in the first half that kept it to 2-1. In the first half, they were trailing. It could have been worse. It could have been worse than 2-1 at halftime. But Messi gets them on the board and then just carries them in the second half. They end up scoring 4 unanswered goals. And, and Leo Messi was in the middle of all of them, either scoring them, assisting them. But he is the reason that they, finally got on board and got everything turned around. And, they started playing differently. They were pushing up higher, taking more risks, more aggressive, but Messi was at the center of all of it. But that win was so big because being in 3rd place going into the playoffs. Now, of course, they wanted to move up to 2nd, but they could not. It ended up Cincinnati won, so they did not move to 2nd. But even by being in 3rd, they now have home field advantage over every team except Philadelphia and Cincinnati,
right,
which means that through the playoffs, if they were to make the final, for example, the final would be here in Fort Lauderdale, because San Diego, LAFC, Vancouver, they all finish lower in points.
Yeah.
So Miami is the top. Miami, if they were to make the final would be at home. If they were to make the conference final against anyone but Philadelphia, they would also be at home, because in the next round they play Cincinnati. If they beat Nashville in this round, they play the winner of Cleveland, Cincinnati. If it's Cleveland, it's played at home in Miami. If it's Cincinnati, Cincinnati has the home field advantage. So clinching that 3rd spot over San Diego and LAFC and Vancouver and all that, that was really, really important if they make it all the way to the final.
Yeah, you meant Columbus, I think. I know you said Cleveland.
Columbus. What did I say?
The Columbus Crew, same state.
Cleveland.
But
Yeah, there
Columbus.
is no team in Cleveland.
Yeah, sorry. Look, I know you meant the Crew. I know you meant
the Columbus Crew. I'm sorry,
yeah.
the Columbus Crew.
No, it's
there
okay.
is no team in Cleveland.
Okay. It's
although
they
did play one game in Cleveland. They played one game in Cleveland when they played Messi.
Maybe
no.
that's what. Maybe that's what threw you off. But
Columbus,
but the
Columbus Crew.
Interesting part, though, even with decision day, the way it went, Not a lot of movement in the standings other than one particular one. Orlando fell all the way to 9 and got stuck in the play-in game, which will be played tonight for those of you watching this or listening to this right now, against Chicago. So kind of interesting, the rival Orlando. We were speculating last week, if it did not end up being Inter Miami Nashville, would it be Orlando possibly? If they would move up, maybe Chicago. Turns out the two teams that we were circling as possible other opponents end up facing each other in a do-or-die play-in round, which is good news for Inter Miami in a way. It gets rid of one of the teams that haunted them a little bit this season, especially Orlando if Chicago were to win. But that's for the future. Nashville is the one that they're focused on now. Let's see some reaction from Telasco Segovia about the big win that solidified this series.
Terminar la fase regular con victoria, pues cómo de importante acabar así con esa victoria y de esta manera y tantos goles.
No, en realidad muy importante para nosotros por la confianza del equipo. Sabemos que viene un tramo muy difícil como son los playoffs. Creo que ya la temporada terminó, todos los equipos para mí cambian en esta fase. Creo que es una fase que es de mata-mata y bueno, creo que llegamos de la mejor manera con este resultado hoy.
En el playoff otra vez contra Nashville, ¿cómo es tener que repetir ahora otra vez seguido partidos contra el mismo rival?
Sí, bueno, como te estoy diciendo, creo que aquí ya terminó la temporada, aquí ya los equipos son otra cosa, se juega, como te dije, mata-mata. Creo que aquí cambia mucho las cosas, pero bueno, sabemos que es un gran rival, nos ha ido muy bien contra ellos y nada, espero que nos siga yendo como nos fue hoy.
En lo personal, un gol también, volviste a marcar. ¿Cómo es para ti tener confianza de cara a playoff?
Sí, no, en realidad feliz por volver al gol, tenía tiempo ya sin uno y nada, de verdad que me da mucha confianza para lo que se viene.
So that was Telasco Segovia, who scored one of the other goals. Telasco and Baltazar Rodriguez scored the other goal. He was asked, about the win and what does it do? He said it gives the team a lot of confidence, but now we're going to play Nashville again and everything changes. He said, now that we're in the playoffs, it's different. It's knockout, it's do or die. And you can't just rely on your results from the past. Everything is different in a knockout situation. But this is a team that we have done very well against. And, so they feel good going into it. It's a team they've done very well against. Obviously, it's a team that they just scored 4 unanswered goals in the second half just a few days ago. So they're feeling pretty good. But, you never know. And then he was asked about scoring his own goal. And he said that it felt really good because he hadn't scored in a while. And so it felt good to get another goal. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting now. They have to play. There's pluses and minuses. You're playing a team that you know very well, but they know you very well also. And it's a team you just beat, obviously. So will they be a little overconfident knowing that they just scored 4 goals unanswered? Or, there's a lot of pluses and minuses of playing the same team in a repeated series.
Yeah, you'd never something they're familiar with is obviously, the aggregate format. You tend to play a team twice, you do that in Champions League and other tournaments, but 3 or even 4 in a row. I mean, we're talking, this is like what you see in basketball or baseball, not in soccer so much. And
no, they don't play 3 teams in a row.
Never.
Yeah, most of the players, the players do discuss it. Noah Allen was telling us that the players do discuss it and debate it in the locker room, because for a lot of them, it is a completely new format. For a lot of these players who are in their first year of MLS, Rodrigo De Paul, for example, and other young players, they've never played the same team 3 games in a row. 2 games in a row, yes, aggregate. One and 1, and that's it. But to have to play 3 games in a row potentially, and have to win twice.
Right.
You have to win twice. You can't just win and then say, oh, well, we won by this score and now we just need to we just need to do. No, you have to win twice, period. And there's no extra time. By the way, there's no extra time. It goes directly to a shootout. In the playoffs, it goes directly to a shootout. So it's a different format from what a lot of these players are used to, for sure.
Yeah, it's not like you can win, let's say, Friday night 4 or 5-0 and then sit on it and say, okay, let's just play back and not lose by 4 and we've got this. No, every game is a must win, in that sense, or at least a recommended win too. It's a tight series too. If you lose that first game and you're up against it, and then the whole travel format too, because it puts so much pressure on Miami to win this game at home in game one, because if not, you're going elimination potentially on the road in game two. It shifts completely in favor of the other team when it goes to game two. And then, you don't want to get it to 3. So unfamiliar format to go 4 in a row for sure if it were to go 3 games, which is what in series format happened with Atlanta last year. They shocked them over there, came back, and even then everybody was like, well, okay, maybe they'll and took it here in Fort Lauderdale. So it's it can be a scary format.
It can be a scary format, yes.
For sure. But one thing that's not scary for Messi is that MVP trophy that seems like it's on the way to being sent to him.
I think it's already being sent.
How appropriate that
he
his
deserves
name would be the one to set that history, Michelle, that you mentioned, the back-to-back first player ever to do that in the league's history. Why not let it be one of the greatest ever to play this sport? We'll probably still be saying that 30 years from now after, MLS is 60 years old. For sure. But let's hear from Javier Mascherano talking about Messi.
No hay ningún tipo de duda, no creo, dando la ventaja de haber jugado bastante menos partido que el resto, la influencia que ha tenido en el equipo, y bueno, no solamente, creo que medir a Leo solamente con los datos, que lo podríamos medir con los datos y es el mejor, creo que va más allá de los datos, es lo que refleja en la cancha, la importancia que tiene dentro del equipo y sobre todo lo que hace disfrutar a todos los que tienen la posibilidad de verlo.
He was asked, do you think that Messi is definitely, undisputed the MVP? And he said, oh, yes. I mean, he just said there is absolutely no doubt, despite the fact that he played fewer games than everybody else, the influence that he's had on this team. And he said, and not only his stats, he said you could measure him by his stats and he's still the best, clearly, right? Because we just said he has 29 goals and 19 assists. So he's top of the chart in stats. But Mascherano said it's not just his stats, it's everything else. It's his presence on the field, his presence off the field, and everything that he brings the fans who are lucky enough to get to enjoy him. There's really no question when you look at all the players in MLS, there is no player who is more valuable to their team or to the league than Lionel Messi. It's indisputable. Last year, there was some debate because he missed 2.5 months and his team did win without him. And there were other players around the league, Buanga being one of them, actually, that there were players who did have huge impacts on their team. And so there was some debate, at least. This year, I don't think there's any debate. I voted, and I will raise my hand and admit I voted Messi for MVP. I don't think if it isn't unanimous, then, it's fine. Everyone has their own opinion, but I don't see how you don't vote him as the MVP of the league this year. It seems to me like there's no other choice this year.
I mean, if he already won it last year, considering it wasn't even like a full, like he missed a lot of games last year, more, and this year, more number. I mean, look at one stat for sure. 81, a league leading 81 goals by Inter Miami this year. No other team in MLS even reached 70. And a lot of those 81, as you mentioned, a lot of those 81 came from, who.
29 of them. And 29 of the 81. 29 of the 81 goals came from one guy.
But even more for a team that has so many struggles defensively, the way this team does, imagine if you took that out of the equation, this team wouldn't be anywhere. They probably wouldn't even make the playoffs, potentially.
Well, not to mention also the 19 assists. So if you combine and you talk about goal contributions, of the 81 goal contributions, 48. He contributed 48. Yep. He contributed 48 times.
More than half.
He was involved in more than half of the goals that this team scored. Right. So MVP, in my mind, no question, he's the MVP.
Yep. No, for sure. And let's hear. We had some more reaction about that from one of his teammates. One of his buddies.
No. We talked. We didn't talk so much about Messi with Rodrigo De Paul. We had a chance to speak with Rodrigo De Paul, which is something that we don't get to do very often.
That's a rarity.
It's a rarity. He's just one of those. He's the big five, and the big five don't speak to us very often. So when we get them, it's a bit of a treat. We talked to Rodrigo De Paul about the playoffs, about what's coming up. He mentions the format actually, and then just about what his adaptation to this league has been, because I think a lot of people expected him to be a major game changer. He came in with a lot of fanfare. Let's admit it. He's Messi's friend. He's a big star from the Argentina World Cup team. He's coming from Spain in good form. And I would say he's had an impact on the team, but I would not say he's been a big, massive game changer. He doesn't stand out in every game. So anyway, he talked a little bit about what it's been like to adapt to the league, how the league is different. And let's hear, for a change, let's hear from Rodrigo De Paul right now. Let's go.
Sí, obviamente que el objetivo es llegar a la final, hasta el último partido. Después, bueno, el fútbol tiene muchos matices que a veces uno no puede controlar, pero entendiendo que todo lo que esté a nuestro alcance lo vamos a hacer. En formato de playoff, como dijiste vos, pero bueno, he jugado algún tipo de similares, como es una eliminatoria o un partido único como una Copa del Mundo, así que bueno, entiendo de la connotación que lleva un partido así, tanto a nivel de lo que uno puede dar dentro de la cancha como a nivel mental, ¿no? Porque bueno, los detalles pueden definir todo, así que seguramente que va a ser un desgaste muy grande contra un gran equipo, pero bueno, estamos preparados y muy ilusionados sobre todo.
Quería saber si estás preocupado que Nashville el primer tiempo jugó muy bien y estaban dominando, entonces cambió todo. ¿Eso te preocupa? Y también si hay ventaja o desventaja de jugar el mismo rival tantas veces seguidas.
Sí, siempre un equipo así, más en esta instancia, como decía antes, te preocupa y te ocupa, ¿no? Mucho tiempo, mucho trabajo. Tiene sus cosas buenas y malas, como todo. Cuando enfrentas a un rival al que ya enfrentaste, por ahí conoces sus debilidades o sus virtudes, pero es así para ellos también, conocerán nuestras debilidades y nuestras virtudes, así que bueno, supongo que lo más importante es que salga un gran espectáculo para la gente, para todos, y que bueno, que obviamente que podamos pasar esta eliminatoria, esta serie, para seguir agarrando confianza e ir por el objetivo mayor que es el que quiere el club y el que todos tenemos.
Rodrigo, llevas varios meses o pocos meses en el club. Quiero preguntarte qué te pareció la liga y si te ha costado desde lo físico. ¿Qué balance haces de tu rendimiento?
Bueno, sí, a ver, la liga, lo dije, físicamente es una liga que demanda un montón, porque bueno, los partidos se hacen muy dinámicos, algo que a mí me gusta. No hay mucho tiempo muerto, como por decirlo de alguna manera, ¿no? Se juega bastante. Después siempre hay cosas para mejorar, siempre se puede ir a más. Todo trabajo, no solo en el fútbol, supongo que entienden de un periodo de adaptación. El fútbol, la gente o la ilusión que tienen cuando llega alguien, demanda que esa adaptación sea lo más rápido posible. Yo lo intento y bueno, pero siempre, como te dije antes, intentando hacerlo lo mejor posible, queriendo mejorar, y creo que la única manera es con trabajo.
So there we have it in Rodri's words. First, he said our goal is to reach the final. Our goal is to reach the final and then see what happens. He said there are some things you can't control in sport, but we're going to do everything we possibly can. He said in another part of the interview that it's important to take the luck factor out of it, that it requires some luck, but they're going to try to do everything they can mentally and physically to remove the luck factor. And he said as far as the format, it is different for him. But he understands the implications, that it's kind of do or die like it is. He said, when you're playing in a World Cup or when you're playing in in a World Cup qualifier or something like that, a game that is a do or die elimination game, he's viewing it as every game here is an elimination game. The details make the difference. The details are super important. You can lose if you don't pay attention to details, which, by the way, the first half, I asked him, are you worried about Nashville? Because they did dominate Miami in the first half. Does that worry you? And also, is it good or bad to play the same team so many times in a row? He said, you do worry about a team like Nashville. Yes. He said that it takes a lot of work to beat a team like that. And we saw what they did in the first half, by the way. He said, so yes, as far as good or bad, he said it's both. He said, we know their strengths and weaknesses, but they also know our strengths and weaknesses. So, it's good and bad both ways. The most important thing is they want to put on a good show for the fans, and they want to get through this stage. And then he was asked what his impressions are of MLS since he arrived. And he said that it's a very demanding, physically, a very demanding league, that it's a dynamic league. His nickname is El Motorcito, so he's known for having a lot of energy. He said, this is the kind of league that I like. There is not a lot of dead time. He said, there's not a lot of downtime, not a lot of dead time. The ball is in motion a lot, and you have to move and you have to work. It's a very physically demanding league, and he said he likes that. He said, but there is an adaptation period. There's a period where he's trying to adjust and adapt, and he said he knows that when a new player comes, everybody's very excited for that player to adapt as soon as possible, and he's trying his best. He didn't say, I'm not playing my best, but he did say, I'm trying my best to adapt. So what I would read into that is that, that he feels that he's maybe not fully 100% adapted when he's played his entire career in different countries and different leagues. He's still trying to get adapted to the physicality of MLS, which is what a lot of the players who come here talk about, the physicality, and also all of the travel, all of the physical demands of MLS because of the travel and because of the nature and the style of play is different from other leagues. So I think that's one of the things he was alluding to.
Yeah, and I think it's easy to forget that he came in middle of the season. He didn't start from the beginning. I mean, it's kind of like when Messi got here. He got here in the summer, wasn't at the start of the year. There was a bit of I know how special he is as a player, and everybody's like, oh, he'll just flip the switch. But there is a little bit of an acclimation that you go through with everything. So he's been going through that. I'm curious, like you were saying, they expected him to be such an impactful player, but now it's playoff time. I wonder if maybe now you start to see a little more of that. Maybe now when the stakes are higher, these guys are used to high pressure type games. It's just this first round. I feel like they just need to somehow. I mean, obviously they need to get past the first round, but taking it like on the bigger lens of everything, especially after last season, it's like just get past this weird 2 out of 3 format, get past, and then whether it's home or away, you get into something that's a little more familiar for everybody, no matter what league or what country they've played in. A single elimination, winner take all, round by round toward a championship. I feel like this round is such a hurdle for them to overcome, not just literally to get
right. No, absolutely.
But even mentally too,
yeah.
like So
yeah. Noah Allen. We spoke to Noah Allen yesterday. Oh no, I was going to say Noah Allen said. Noah Allen was asked. We talked to Noah Allen also yesterday, and he was asked, "Is it extra motivation that you guys are trying to win for Boosie and Jordy because they're leaving, and you want to send them off with a trophy and this and that?" And he said, "Yes, that is a form of motivation." But he said, "But I have to be honest." He said, "We have not forgotten the pain and the sting of losing last year in the first round." He said, "Those of us who were on the team last year," he said, "that's been the biggest talk in the locker room, is the players who were here last year, they do not want a repeat of what happened last year." And he said, that is our biggest motivation, is the pain that we still feel from losing in the first round last year. And he said, that is their biggest motivation going into this Nashville series. So the players who were here last year, they remember how humiliating, honestly, because they were the Supporters Shield winners, first place all season. They played the 9th place team, the lowest possible seed, and they lost in the first round and were eliminated. And that was embarrassing for them, humiliating, painful, and that pain is still there.
Yeah.
And that is what's driving them and motivating them going into the games this weekend.
What's funny, let's look, if you look at the playoff picture, and you were mentioning it earlier, how they not only were third in the East, but they were third overall. They're better than, like you said, the top
Yes.
3 are better than everyone out West. They were 1 point away from getting that supporter shield, maybe 2 points away, I guess, if you say they'd had to jump Philadelphia, but that's 1 win. If you think about it, after all those little ups and downs and hiccups they had this year for different reasons and whatnot, they were still 1 win from repeating as supporter shield champions. So, I mean, that's pretty remarkable considering the all the hills and all the little ups and downs this team had during the seasons, logistics and whatnot that they had to deal with. They still almost pulled it off.
Yeah, they're still an outstanding team. Like we said, they scored 81 goals, far more than every other team. The one thing that is still that could haunt them, and that's the biggest question, is defensively.
Yeah.
They gave up 55 goals, which out of all the teams, I looked it up, out of all the teams in the playoffs, there are only two teams that gave up that many, which was Dallas, who's the 7th seed in the West, gave up 55, the same number. And Chicago, which is the 8th seed over here, gave up 60.
Right.
But they gave up more goals than all but 2 playoff teams. So, yes, they score 81, and that is why they were able to, yes, they gave up 55, but they scored 81. So they have to score a lot of goals in the playoffs, or they have to really clean up defensively, especially in transition. And that is really the biggest question going into the playoffs is, can they score enough goals to make up for their leaky defense, especially in transition? That's the big question, because they did 5 times this year. I believe it was 5 times this year or 6. They gave up 3 or more goals. They gave up 5 goals to Chicago. They gave up 4 goals. They gave up 3 goals to different teams. So 5 or 6 times this year, they conceded 3 or more goals. If you do that in the playoffs, it's going to be very difficult to win.
More than likely. Yeah, especially on the road, if you end up on the road, because they could end up on the road, like you mentioned before.
Against Cincinnati.
Maybe not this round, but next round potentially if it's Cincinnati, and then obviously the conference finals, Philadelphia gets there, then you have the same problem there. But yeah, I mean, and you're putting more pressure not only on your defense, your goalie, who you talked about, Rocco, he's stepped up so far, but this is gonna the stakes are a little higher now. That's the
yeah. We still don't know. Mascherano has not said yet who he's going to start, and we may not know until game day. I mean, he really is. They wanted an internal competition. Maybe they wanted to light a fire under Ustari. Was his performance was dipping a little bit around the time that Chicago game where they gave up 5 goals, which was the most they gave up all year. The next thing you know, Rocco Rios Novo is starting, which you would never think. He makes 105,000 or 120,000 with bonuses, and and Ustari is a guy who makes 700,000, and they signed to a new contract. So, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens coming up now, with the playoffs. But they have Philadelphia ahead of them, which could be in the conference finals. Cincinnati and the Columbus Crew are their opponent in the next round if they get past Nashville. And then if they get to the final, which would be at home for Miami, which would be a big benefit, It could be San Diego, a team that in their first season ends up in first place. It could be Vancouver, team that we know has been very good, was top of the table much of the year, very good, and beat them easily, handily. LAFC, a team that with the addition of Son with Bouanga together is a dynamic duo. Think about them going up against Miami's transition defense. That could be not so pretty. Yeah. And then Seattle, Minnesota, even. I mean, there are some teams on the West Minnesota that are all strong contenders.
Minnesota dealt Miami an ugly loss at Minnesota earlier this year, and then we don't have to go into we can do a whole show. We did a whole show on the Sounders and the incident in Leagues Cup. So there's a lot of history already built up with a lot of opponents. But one thing I'll caution everybody. Remember last year we were penciling in all these favorites. Remember last year there was some mayhem in the playoffs.
Some upsets.
Not only Inter Miami, a lot of favorites fell early. So you never know.
Yes.
We may be penciling in all these teams, and Chicago or Orlando or somebody else is sitting there going, "Hey, don't count us out. We might surprise some people."
I wouldn't count out Chicago. Chicago has been playing very strong. We saw what they did to Miami. That's a team that, and they've got Greg Berhalter as a coach. I know some people complain about him, USNet. That's a guy with a lot of experience as a coach. He's been a national team coach in the United States. There are teams that can pull upsets, no question, especially once it gets to single elimination. Anything can happen. In Columbus Crew, they're not at the top right now, but that is a team that is always dangerous.
They won it before.
So there's a lot of suspense going into these playoffs for sure.
They won it 2 years ago. If we remember, they were the champs in 2023.
Yes.
So still got the coach and everybody that can be dangerous. But let's hear from Javier Mascherano talking a little bit about the postseason and what's ahead.
Bueno, creo que nosotros hemos hecho méritos suficientes durante toda la temporada como para hemos demostrado ser un equipo serio. Claramente nos hubiese por momentos haber sido un poco más regulares, pero también volvemos a lo mismo. Jugando todo lo que jugamos, encontrar la regularidad muchas veces es difícil, por cansancio, por desgaste, por un montón de situaciones. Creo que en lo que respecta a la conferencia nuestra, lo veo todo muy parejo. La verdad que inclusive hoy viendo Columbus que está peleando ahí en zona de play-in, que me sorprende porque es de los equipos, a mi manera de ver, más atractivos y que más me gustan, pero que por este tipo de lesiones, desgastes, se fue cayendo en las últimas jornadas. Creo que es todo muy parejo. Del otro lado, no he visto demasiado en profundidad. Claramente Vancouver es un equipo que hemos enfrentado y creo que es muy fuerte. Seattle es muy fuerte. Se hacen muy muy fuerte cuando juegan de local, sobre todo por el tema del sintético. San Diego es un equipo que me gusta mucho también, es su manera de jugar, algo parecido a lo que hace Columbus. Y creo que Los Ángeles FC, con la llegada de Son, ha dado un paso muy, muy, muy grande hacia adelante.
Okay, so basically, Javier Mascherano giving his preview of the playoffs, said, look, I think that we have shown that we're definitely a contender. Our team is a strong contender. We've been inconsistent at times, but that's also maybe because we've had such a packed schedule, the wear and tear. He said, I think we're definitely a contender in the East. He said, I find it very balanced. And he said, all you have to do is look at the Columbus Crew, a team that he admires a lot, and they were down there fighting for playing spots and all that. So he said, that shows how balanced the East is. He said on the West, he doesn't think the West is as deep as we were just saying. He said Vancouver is obviously very good. Seattle is very good. And he said, especially at home, because the artificial turf, when Seattle's playing at home, it makes it even more difficult because they play on turf. San Diego, he said, is a team he really likes how they play. And then LAFC, with the addition of Son, has taken a big step forward. So he sees those four teams, Vancouver, Seattle, San Diego, and LAFC, as the four teams to beat in the West. So I would have to concur at this point.
Yeah, it's a top-heavy Western Conference. We've seen that. The East is wide open, as we've said. So it'll be interesting going up against Nashville. But let's wrap it up by talking a little bit about Ian Fray, though. Impressing a lot of teams in Europe. He spoke this week too about his future a little bit. What's up with Ian Fray, Michelle?
Well, Ian Fray just made his Jamaica debut. He had never played for the national team. He was called up to the Jamaican national team, which is a big deal. This is a local kid from Coconut Creek, Florida, who came through the Inter Miami Academy, and he gets called up now to the Jamaican national team. And there's interest in Europe from him. There are teams in Europe from several countries in Europe that have been interested in him. And we had always just sort of assumed, no, he's a local kid. He's going to want to stay here. But it looks like he may have his eyes on Europe. Not may, he does have his eyes on Europe. And we may not see him next year. He's one of the players that's going to be a different looking team next year. A lot of players from this year's team will not be here. And let's see what Ian Fray had to say.
Ian, there were rumors before you made your national team debut is that there are some teams in Europe interested in you. Now you are a senior national player. That helps you. Is that something that's on your radar? Is that something that's one of your goals?
Yeah, my main goal is to play in Europe, 100%.
Did you talk about with your teammates that are playing over there? The Cordova Reed has had a good season, a good couple of years over there. Did you talk a little bit with them about that?
Yeah, I kind of talked to them like what it's like playing over there. Level of play, obviously, it's really high, and yeah. Right now I'm focused on Inter Miami, but that's definitely something for the future that I want to do with my career.
You say future. I mean, where do you see yourself like next season or 2 years? What's your goal?
My goal is to, in the future, like you said, to play in Europe. But right now, I'm just focused on Miami. I'm focused on the team, focused on playoffs. So nothing past that right now.
Does your contract end now at the end of the season?
The contract ends in December. Yeah.
And you haven't talked about extension or about an option? Or...
Yeah, we talked a little bit about an extension, but yeah, we have.
Well, sounds like he has his eyes on Europe. Benha left. That was one of the local kids gone to Italy. And now it looks like Ian Fray, if he gets an opportunity, which it seems like he might, he may be off too. And it'll be interesting to see what happens to him. Jamaica's in a good position, by the way, to make the World Cup. So we could see Ian Fray, believe it or not, playing in the World Cup next summer and playing for a team in Europe. So a lot's going to change after this season. There are a lot of players whose contracts are up, who are on loan. So it's going to be a different looking team. But for now, we're going to focus on this team going into the Nashville series, and we're going to see what happened. By the time we talk next week, we will see what will have happened in game 1. They'll be getting ready for game 2. By the way, next week is our 100th episode, so we may have a special guest. So anyway, stay tuned. Next week is the 100th episode of Inside Inter Miami.
Yep, we'll have some cool things planned, and like Michelle said, maybe a special guest as well. Probably some mate, I'm sure. We got to get those cups out again.
We'll do some mate for sure.
Dust them off and get them ready for the 100th episode, where we'll be talking about either Inter Miami in the driver's seat with a 1-0 lead heading to Nashville, or in big trouble if it's the other way around, needing a win on the road. But either way, we'll be back to talk about game 1 and look ahead to game 2 next week. And we thank you, as always, for watching Inside Inter Miami. Remember to catch us on YouTube, MiamiHerald.com. Catch all of Michelle's work there as well. And hope you enjoy the games. Remember, Friday night, 8 o'clock, Chase Stadium, game 1. We'll see you next week.